listening to your brain on air. The program will begin shortly. Enjoy.
Asculți creierul tău de aer, programul va începe în scurt timp. Bucură-te!
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to Your Brain on Air. I am your host, Ollie Vogt Larson. And folks, a new robotics project outside of Auburn, California. It is capturing the attention of the nation, and I want to show it all to you today. There is a 7-foot-tall Centaur-style robot that is designed to tackle high-risk emergency missions. It's being created by the robotics venture Centaurus. It is like satyr, like the word, like where it's a goat person, but because it has a goat head, but it has like a centaur-type body. It's like it's the mix of a satyr and a horse. It doesn't really make sense, but that's the word that they're going to go with in order to refer to this. The machine pairs a four-legged locomotion base with a humanoid upper body and a distinct horned goat-like head equipped with illuminated sensor optics. This is really unconventional in its aesthetics, but it is turning a lot of heads because the designers are emphasizing that the hybrid form is engineered for maximum utility in hazardous environments like wildfires, collapsed structures, and toxic industrial zones. They don't want it to move quite like an ordinary person. They want it to have the mobility of a horse because apparently they can move better than we can. Unlike traditional bipedal humanoids or the standard four-legged robot dogs that you normally see from like the Maryland robotics people, the Centaur design provides crucial mechanical advantages for emergency responders. The four-legged stance offers dynamic stability across uneven, debris-strewn terrain, while the upper torso also allows operators to utilize familiar humanoid tools, including chainsaws, drills, and heavy machinery attachments. Furthermore, the system utilizes friction-braked joints, ensuring that if power fails during a mission, the heavy robot locks into place rather than collapsing onto survivors or onto search teams. The robot operates entirely via remote human control rather than autonomous artificial intelligence. That's going to change here really soon. Like, don't get it twisted. Once they collect enough human data to just train the thing on, they're not going to have you pilot it anymore. It's just going to be it going into those types of zones and saving human people's lives. Like, I'm going to be real with you. What do policemen look like in a few years? Maybe a trade of the past. What do firemen look like in a few years? Maybe a trade of the past. It might be that we are serviced by Centaur, like, you know, Centaur in the sense where it's like a centaur satyr. It's like, it's a centaur in the sense where it's a horse body, but it's a satyr with a goat head. And people like me personally think that I believe this is going to get us used to the idea of when we have demons servicing us. Now listen, they're going to find Solomon's ring, which he used to command the forces of demons to get him to build the temple, which is, they're going to use that in order to build the third temple, or at least they think that's what they're going to use. But that once we have Solomon's ring again, and we're able to conjure these, like, I believe, a lot of people call them jinns, some people call them demons. What they are is they're like demonic forces, and demonic in the sense where I don't believe they have our greatest interests at heart. I don't believe that they consider humans that much important. They're just the things that people see when they do DMT. Like, we're dealing with an idea that in the future, instead of police, we're going to have these like demon circles. You'll be able to draw a circle and you'll be able to put a sigil in the middle. And instead of calling the police, this is going to arrive. It will be, this is the pre-version of it. This is like, Alexander Graham Bell didn't just like ring up a phone. He didn't instantly send a cock picture to somebody. It took years to get to that point. But right now we have like satyr and centaur style robots that are going to be coming and saving you instead of police officers. And that's going to get us used to the idea of these goat-headed creatures, essentially. They're not going to be human beings anymore. We are going to be serviced by demons. After the New World Order is established, after, you know, the world between us and the ethereal gets kind of vague and hazy, where we start to talk more, like, I'm going to be real with you. We are on the cusp of people like AI is going to figure out what consciousness is. It's going to figure out that like these things that we call ghosts are not really, they're not like this otherworldly creature. It is energies. It's presences that we all can interact with and intermingle with anytime we'd like. You have to call upon these forces. They'll only come into your life if you invite them in, or if you're weak in some manner. That's why a lot of alcoholics, people who are really prone to addicts, they're more often than not likely to be open to the influence of of these types of creatures. They're the ones that have like goat types of sigils everywhere. Like, I'm gonna be honest with you, these people, they're lightning rods, and they don't realize that they've opened themselves up to a world of electricity that is now channeling its way through them. But that is the demon inside of them. They are not fighting the demon. It's evil, and it's the world they want us all to get used to. The idea of the goat is the servant. Listen, they told us not to make false idols. I'm not a Christian, but in any extent, but I do believe that there is messages encoded where it's as though it's telling you to be cautious. It's telling you to be weary of anybody who says, we're going to come in, we're going to solve all of your problems. But the way we solve your problems is that we get the human element out of it. We are not going to have, like, why would you want a human being risking its life to come in and save you? Why would you want a human being to, go into a school shooting and risk its life? Why wouldn't you want these Sadar goat-headed robots to go in and save people's lives? It's honestly, you're the evil person for pushing back on this.
This is new tonight. A Centaur-style robot is taking the internet by storm.
It looks a little bit nightmarish, especially with some of the shots. The strange-looking bot is actually designed, though, to save lives. It's nearly 7 feet tall and called Three Halves, a superhumanized general-purpose robot.
It's called Three Halves.
Legs, a horse-like body, goat-like head. The company behind it is based in Auburn. The bot's designed to go into wildfire zones and disaster sites.
Wow.
This is a nice way to be pretty stable. It's a lot easier to make it walk compared to a biped because it's just more dynamically stable. It's quite light if you compare it to something like wheels and tracks. So that's where I ended up going with, was the 4 legs.
The Centaur-style robot can even use a chainsaw with its 2 arms, thus the nightmarish, I think, comparisons. The company says it's designed for jobs that are dangerous for humans, including extreme heat, bitter cold, darkness, and...
Why don't we just make the 100-handed ones? Like, why don't we make the giant 3 brothers named Codus, Brarius, and Gyges? Like, why don't we just have giant 100-handed beings that are they're gonna service us instead of police forces? We're calling on Greek mythology, essentially. We're developing a world that people thought only existed in the fairy tales you told your children at night. You have goat head servants that are going to be servicing you in a few years. Do you know why they're debuting this with like animal human-like features? Because when they debut the chimeras, when they tell you that, hey, curious little thing, but for like over the last 50 years, China and the United States have been coordinating this effort where essentially we're trying to, since they're the ones that are really good at organ developing and organ harvesting, we've been doing most of the research in China, but in general, what we have are these human-animal hybrids. We call them the chimeras. Essentially, these are people that have been intermingled either with pig DNA, other sorts of animals. We have tons of we have fish people. Like, we have people who can breathe underwater, and we've been developing them inside of these like underground laboratories all over the world, mostly in China, and then most of the time, what we do is we kill them before they get to full size, mostly because we like to harvest their organs, use them in ordinary people, see if we can't create some sort of mutant. This is happening all over the world, ladies and gentlemen. This is a lot of what Epstein's people were into also, because it was a giant breeding program. You wanted, essentially, also telepathy was a big thing they were invested in. The idea was like they were going to get into mind control. They were deep into the idea of like human mutants are a thing, the consciousness around us, we need to develop new sciences in order to measure it, because there's forces beyond us that we need to have ways of measuring, but we seemingly only have ways of watching it influence us. It's like how they want to say, what is dark matter? Get rid of the category of dark matter. We say that it doesn't exist, but it clearly does. We can't define it. We need to recreate the sciences so that we can define these undefinable things. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I don't know what else to say about this except for let's just hopefully they can convince us. Honestly, when these robots, you're going to look back on this in a second. You're going to go, man, it's actually kind of nice. It was nice to have these Sadar robots servicing us, but in the 2080s, when they go ahead and they just hide, they hide all those, they put them in warehouses, but they have actual satyrs, they have actual centaurs, they have actual human-animal hybrids out there in the world servicing us. It's going to be like a look back on the past. Oh shit, that was kind of weird. Look back at the era when we had human beings that were police officers. Now we have humans that come out of laboratories. They technically don't have any human rights because we intermingle their DNA with horses or something, so they don't show up. We can make government servants with no human rights because they're technically not human beings. Then there's going to be fights for the animal-human hybrids. Like this, we're talking about a new era of humanity where we have spliced our DNA with the creatures around us, and as a result, we're creating like new human rights categories. We're creating new species of people. This thing about like, oh, the Khajiits or whatever, like in Skyrim, these cat people, the Argonians, these lizard people, like these are things that exist in our world here and now. There's human beings that have been interspliced with DNA. Like, if you wanted to look at just the shit in the Epstein files where it's like, oh, we want to connect human heads to pigs. We want to find a way to put a human head on a pig and somehow keep it alive. This stuff does not get... Like, it's not that hard to imagine where, like, how far they'll end up taking it, especially when you have unlimited money, unlimited power. The imagination is the limit. That is the only limit. And, of course, the imagination is dark. That's why unfortunately, that you have tissue farms where these children are, they never spend a moment outside of these tubes. They literally float in a saline solution type of thing until they have grown into the size that they need, just big enough to steal their kidneys. And then they kill it. And then they experiment with its DNA. They figure out what they like, would break it up into pieces. They're like, does it still age like a normal human being? They're in categories of science they don't have names for anymore. We are beyond the areas where, okay, maybe he just had like a weird dentist chair and he was taking all the kids' teeth out so he could suck his cock better. Like, no, guys, that dentist chair was likely to look and overview some of the dead human, half animals that he had on that island. Guys, we're dealing with people that were creating monsters, literal monsters. And if that's hard to imagine, if it's hard to imagine where Epstein would be the type to read the story of the Minotaur, he'd be the type to read the story of a woman breeding with a cow and then it creating a half man, half cow type creature. And if it's weird to you that he would ever read that and not think to, like, why not? When you are that dark, when you're that twisted, that manipulative of the mind, when you are that far gone in your own delusions, why not? It'd be kind of cool to have a bull-headed guy running around my island. Wouldn't that be kind of cool? That's exactly what all those tunnels underground are for. He trapped the Minotaur that he bred. He took his semen, he implanted it into a feminine bull, and then he created a half bull, half man. Listen, I understand that this sounds like, oh, we're having fun with your imagination. We're not talking about things that even could be remotely realistic or whatever. It's not hard to imagine these things when you get into the gene editing, the splicing, not just transgendering, but transgressing what human nature was meant to be. Not even that it was meant to be, because that implies the idea that we come from a creator. But I'm saying you're going against what human beings are known to be. You're going against our nature, and you're creating versions of us that could have a degree of consciousness. These people that we splice with pig DNA in order to steal their organs because they technically don't have any human rights, they have a degree of consciousness. It's just not well researched because they more often than not kill these creatures before they're able to fully have conversations with them. Some of them are able to speak words, not great, but like some of them have been able to put together words. Some of them are like, they are to a degree intelligent. They have some way of interacting with the world around them that shows that their brain, it like takes in information. It learns like a human being does. But we kill these creatures because we don't treat them the same. It's just that they're not on the same level as us. We've created a slave class, and that slave class, you can talk about whatever. You can talk about gender rights. You can talk about race rights. You can talk about whatever. There are women, there are young girls that are being stolen away from their parents. Sometimes their parents are selling them into sex slavery. That happens even in America. But there are people that are in rooms right now that have a fetus in them that is not human. That is a thing that is happening all around this country, and it's verifiable. It's true. This is not hard to find it's not just in the Epstein files. This is Peter Nygaard. This is life extending things. These are Keith Richards. Like, this is people that the Rolling Stones, many people have had this joke for many years that Keith Richards, I believe it was, did the blood transfusions for his heroin addiction. Guys, it was life-extending therapy. Peter Nygaard was doing the same exact thing. He would impregnate women, kill the fetus of his own. It's half him, you know what I mean, so that his body will not reject the DNA. But he would literally inject the DNA of fetuses that he had murdered from his mistresses. Some of these girls as young as like 14 years old. This is something that sounds like it's out of a fairy tale. It sounds like something that is out of Greek myth. But then you start to realize maybe the Greek myth was influenced by reality. That maybe the people of ancient times were familiar with the practice of literally, you see witches grinding babies into mush. You see them, they cut babies apart and they literally take their fingers, take their flesh, and they mortar and pestle it into this paste, like the witch in that one movie, and they smear it all over their bodies because they understood that youthful blood was, to an extent, it rejuvenated them. The human body is rejuvenated by the blood of the innocent, blood of the youth. It might not have anything to do with their innocence. It might have anything to do with like how's their mental state at? Except for like, adrenochrome has been found to have some degree of like, it reinvigorates people. That's for sure. We are dealing with like human beings have been doing this for millennia. It's something that has just kind of transverted into this like thing that's more so underground. Sure, there's pedophiles everywhere. Sure, there's like the average what's it's in a trailer park, like sexually abusing his niece. But then, like, if you have a degree of money, if you have some knowledge of the sciences, you understand that you can harvest fear in a way. You can harvest youth. You can harvest energy. Vampires are a myth and they are a story, but they're based on a degree of fact. And it's not hard. It's not that hard when you have an active mind, honestly, to draw that conclusion. It's not hard to see how a lot of these myths and a lot of these folklore, this witch who out there lives in a house made of candy, and she like kidnaps kids and makes them work for them and eats them and shit. Like, that happened. That probably has happened many times over, and it's just more so. I think Epstein in a few years is going to be like a bedtime story. I think Epstein is going to be this sort of like, mythologized, maybe. Do you guys, isn't it crazy to think that like a rich guy, like a king or a lord could just sexually abuse young chambermaids and all this sort? Like, it's real life. It's stuff that's out there. It's verifiable, but it's just the way that the human mind can process it and deal with it is by mythologizing it, by creating folklore, by creating stories. And I believe that's where we get a lot of these like vampiric tales. It's where we get this sort of this monster, this Jekyll and Hyde dynamic of like a monster hiding in the skin of an ordinary man. Because more often than not, that's where these stories originated. An ordinary man who just had an incredible amount of desire, an incredible amount of lust, an incredible amount of hate, deciding one day to act on all of those. And that's one of the scariest things out there, is that it is all up to the individual. If they have enough anger in them, if they have enough whatever, that kind of fire, that rage or whatever, that is what creates myths. It is a person who goes out and creates enough horror that humanity only has a way of dealing with it by creating a story in its own head, by mythologizing around the man, Jack the Ripper. It happened to prostitutes. It happened to it was like this college girl, Ed Kemper, Ted Bundy. All of these stories will be coalesced into the story of the killer who don't get in his car, stranger danger. I love the way that we work. I love the way that we deal with things. I love the way that we process them by creating them. We boil them down into these basic tales until, it's something as simple as like, I'm going to tell this so that my child goes to bed with a good moral. Like that alone is like my favorite thing about us. I love story. I love how we create things in our mind just to like in little bite-sized packages so that it's easier for us to digest. Ladies and gentlemen, I feel as though we should move on. I feel as though I've wasted your time enough. And I feel as though we should get on to our first story, because Troy Jackson, I want to talk about him. Former Maine Senate president Troy Jackson has secured the Democratic nomination for the United States Senate following a special party convention in Bangor. Bangor? What is Bangor? Is that a place in Maine? Jackson, he's a fifth-generation logger from northern Maine. He emerged victorious after delegates overwhelmingly selected him to replace the former nominee, Graham Plattner. This is why we're talking about him. He withdrew from the race earlier this month amid a lot of controversial, let's just put it that way, allegations. And he's back to ordinary citizenship. He's back to oyster farming or whatever the hell he was up to, and all he did was give us a few good stories while he was there. So unless he chooses to re-enter public life, this is it. We have officially retired the product and the person of Graham Plattner. Rest in peace. I know he's not dead. So The special nominating convention was triggered after state Democratic leaders called for the reset of one of the nation's most closely watched congressional contests. Obviously, this is the biggest one with Susan Collins, where they need to defeat Miss Shaky. And, I'm running. I loved her campaign where they released a video. They couldn't hide her feet. Not her feet, but she hauled up these shoes and she was holding them with her hands. And she went, "These are perfect because I'm running in 2026. She could not hold it. It's not even the joke about Marty McFly. What's his name? Marty McFly's actor. I'm a piece of shit for this one because I should know it. I'm a piece of shit for this because he's one of the most iconic actors of his time. Michael J. Fox. Fuck, I'm a piece of shit. Yes, Michael J. Fox. He was in all of those. Teen Wolf and Family Ties. He's great in that. Spin City, The Frighteners. Okay, all of his roles kind of fall off a cliff after a second, but he's still alive, isn't he? Oh my God, this is such a waste of time, but I don't care. Michael J. Fox, yes, he has stage 4 corresponding Parkinson's disease. That's so sad. He was diagnosed with young onset Parkinson's in 1991 at the age of 29, and he continues his advocacy at the Michael J. Fox Foundation. That sucks. That really, really sucks, where essentially Parkinson's, if you don't know, you got a lot of motor issues and whatnot. He has balance issues. You got some stiffness and whatnot. It's terrible. But yeah, he had a really promising career. He was a voice actor in one of my favorite Disney movies. It's very underrated. And honestly, it's not a great movie, but it's perfectly fine. Atlantis. And he was the main character with the glasses and whatnot. What is his name in that? It doesn't matter. But what I'm trying to give him his flowers, and unfortunately, Michael is a very forgettable name. I'm sorry. Marty McFly is much better. What am I talking about? Did I just reference him and I lost my train of thought entirely? Well, I don't know how we got into Marty McFly. I don't know how we even mentioned Michael J. Fox. Oh, Susan Collins. There's Miss Shaky. Unfortunately, it looks like she has Parkinson's. It's really tragic, actually. I hope she doesn't have Parkinson's. I really don't want her to have Parkinson's. It's a terrible condition. It's debilitating, and it brings a lot of people down. It's terrible. Not it makes them sad. No, it actually ruins a lot of lives. Unfortunately, it's terrible. Take care of yourself, ladies and gentlemen. Although it's one of those brain conditions where we don't really know the causes of it. Alcohol and what are the main risk factors? Are the main risks for Parkinson's? I think it's genetic. Most of the times it's genetic. And I don't know if there's any way to fight that. Advancing age, the male gender, and then history and genetics. For comprehensive views of the main risks, it's mostly your risk increases after the age of 40. Men face a higher risk than women. Specific gene mutations or close relatives with the condition raise the chances. Toxins. Contact with certain pesticides, herbicides, or industrial solvents can also increase the risk. Past traumatic brain injuries or repeated concussions can also increase the risk. Presence of type 2 diabetes or REM, sleep behavior disorder. So watch out. Keep an eye on that sleep and keep an eye on that sugar intake, ladies and gentlemen. Okay. The special nominating, yes, we got to talk about that, was triggered after the state Democratic leaders called for a reset of the congressional district contest because they were we have to defeat Susan Collins. And Jackson ended up winning. He previously served as the state Senate president and ran in Maine's gubernatorial primary earlier this year. He swept the delegate vote with an economic populist platform focused on labor standards, healthcare reform, and the working class advocacy. And he's got this party nomination officially secured. He's turning to focus directly on to November. He's setting up high-stakes general election challenge energy against the long-serving incumbent Republican Senator Susan Collins, and it's widely expected to be a major battleground as the national Democrats and Republicans vie for control of the tight 53-47 upper chamber. Very, very fun.
Troy Jackson is now the Democratic nominee for the Senate race in Maine. He just received 566 delegate votes at the convention.
Compared to Sonder Pelletier's 5 votes.
In Bangor, his opponent, Sandra Pelletier, received only 5. Troy Jackson is a fifth-generation logger, and he is the former president of Maine's state Senate. And before this week, he did not have much name recognition at all outside of the state. There was a University of New Hampshire poll taken before Jackson secured the nomination. It found that he has a slight lead now over incumbent Republican Susan Collins in a hypothetical matchup in November. It is an early indication that this race may be even more competitive than expected.
Ooh.
Collins is pursuing her 6th term a senator and has spent decades cultivating.
She really shakes. Even in the clips where they show her in the chamber, in the clips where they show her at her job. And I'm not trying, I know it's a comedy show. We're trying to make light. We're trying to have fun. Brain conditions really get to me. I'm just going to be honest with you because I've had, unfortunately, family members who've died of, onset conditions that are, they're ones where, yeah, maybe the risk factors are up there and maybe, there's, weight issues. Maybe there's smoking. Maybe there's heart conditions that can account for it. But otherwise, it's Alzheimer's. That was another big one that where I struggle with those sorts of things, and I'm not I struggle because I hate the idea of any more of my family members dying of it, and I'm sure many people who have had a family member die of Alzheimer's or any of those Parkinson's, whatever. It's really tough. It's unfortunate because it's not fully within that person's control. And with the brain conditions, with all those sorts of things, it's actually they're around for a while. They are there for, it can be 5 years from their diagnosis that they die. It can be up to 10. It can be 20. If it's really a really long sort of thing. And it's you watch them the entire time that they're there, but they lose the parts of them that made them themselves because themselves was inhabilitated. Themselves was them without the condition, and you lose that. You lose that part of them after a while, unfortunately. The phone calls with them don't sound the same. Their in-person conversations, they carry themselves differently, and it's horrific. It's terrible. It's one of those things where you're alive for the entire thing, which is, it's terrible to imagine the idea that not only are you decaying, not only is your body infirm and getting less firm by the day, but you're awake for it. That is really the truly most horrific thing, because I'm a person where I'm I hate the idea of not having control. I'm a bit of a control person in a way where it's just sort of, it bugs my mind in it to the idea of, oh, your body is the thing that is denying you the control of your body. That's that is the most horrific idea, is that your body is the betrayer, and there's nothing you can do about it because you normally exert your control through your body. I don't know why I'm getting so intense into this, but I'm just it's sad to watch people, especially people that are with Biden, it was tough. With Biden, it was this is somebody where I understand that he's not a full dementia patient where he wanders, he walks off and whatnot. He it was rough watching Biden those 4 years. It was really tough because also the cancer that he was hiding, the brain surgeries that he hid. Everything makes you a little bit nervous around him. And it just kind of, right around the time that he was, publicly falling apart was around the same time that I had this family member that was very privately falling apart at the seams. And it's man, this is tough because it's this dichotomy of I know that this is not within your control, Biden. I know that this is not something that you elected to do. Nobody elects to slowly die, but for the sake of your people, for the sake of your country, it's within your... I always thought that it was inappropriate of him to continue to want to serve, to continue to want to run. Everybody felt it, especially with the Kamala running in 2024. Everybody was he felt so reluctant to give up this position of power, which at that point, I think it was more so, I don't care if I'm hiding the cancer. I don't care if I'm going to chemo in between meetings at the White House. I'm keeping it until 2028, which that was a weird time to be alive. Susan Collins is a tough one to watch for me, and honestly, it's tough to make fun of her because I struggle to find very much that's funny, except for her big Jew nose. But otherwise, it's I just have to watch this woman shake those phones that used to be on the dial where it was our parents, they always make fun of us because we don't know how to make phone calls with them. And it's I didn't grow up with a rotary, you fucking dinosaur. I'm sorry, I don't know how to... You know how you pull, you put your finger on the number and then you pull the rotary phone until it goes to the place where it stops your finger, and then you let go, and then you go to the next number, and then you pull it back, and then you pull it's that's how you use a rotary phone. I know how to use it. I've just never made a call with it. But I hate it because I don't like it, but I love the comparison that I just have to watch Susan shake this phone that's waiting for somebody to answer it.
An image of being an independent Republican, somebody who's willing to buck her own party when necessary, but that does not necessarily line up with her vote. She has voted with Donald Trump more times than not when it really matters. And you know what? Voters in Maine are picking up on that. I spoke to some folks, even here in New York, on the Upper West Side of Manhattan a couple weeks ago. Here's one of them. Here's what one of them said about.
Okay, here's what one of them said. We're gonna get into what one of them said. I want to get clear. I don't know anything about this man. I don't know anything about Troy Jackson. I don't know that he's like. I don't even know for sure that he's gonna win. Although he certainly seems to be the favorite. I do find it very odd that he has reportedly fathered 2 children with his second cousin. Now listen. I have ultimate sympathies for people who live out in the forests, people who live out in the woods. I understand. You're out in the sticks, you're out in the middle of nowhere. It gets tough to remember. Oh, how do we know Kathy's family from down the road? How do we know so and so's family? Like their grandma's the same grandma as our grandma, or like we have the same aunt or whatever. That gets tough after a while because your dating pool very much shrinks, and unfortunately for him, I think he didn't get out of the pool. The pool shrunk to the point where the pool was about the size of like an 8-ounce cup, and he was still in the pool, unfortunately. And listen, he has played up his family's longtime roots in the state, and it has an unusual side effect of that. It is allegedly resulted in him marrying his second cousin. This news is devastating. Him and his partner Lana Pelletier do not appear as officially married. Wait a minute. This woman has the same last name as his opponent. God, Maine has it's like a really tight-knit community, very evidently. Jackson has referred to Pelletier as his wife on various occasions. They do not appear to be officially married. The two have dated since high school. They live together and share 2 adult children. They also allegedly share the same great-grandparents. Okay. This was first reported on by the Maine Wire's Chiefs editor, Steve Robinson, who cited tipsters and genealogical records that have linked the two to shared sets of great-grandparents, Thomas Pellier and Edith Thibaudou. I hate French names. I hate the French. I can't deal with them. They're really upsetting. The Jackson and Pellier, they've dated since high school. They live together. They have 2 adult children. Jackson, a 5th-generation logger politician. He, on occasion, is referred to Pellier as his wife, though the couple do not appear to be officially married according to state documents. Okay, I understand if you're not the type. I'm fucking talking. Excuse me? I'm gonna get to it whenever I want to get to it, but you don't have the right to talk during my fucking show, you bitch. All right. My point, if you're not married by state documents, if you're not married, I get it, if that works for you, if your interpersonal lives are, whatever, and you just feel like it's not going to work for you, especially if you're, second cousins or whatever, I get it. It's tough. It's not going to work very well for you. It probably is also going to be, I don't know how the kids feel. You gotta, if you're the child of, the people who have the same great-grandparent, I don't know how that, does that affect your interpersonal health? How does that affect your mental health? Doesn't seem like you're going to be doing too hot after that.
Susan Collins.
She has a habit of, quote, being very concerned.
Concerned, always. Susan Collins is always concerned.
About certain issues, and then she ends up voting 90% of the time.
With Trump, yeah. Yeah, that's her line, right? I'm concerned.
Yeah. So at the point where I know what somebody's going to say and what somebody's going to do, I can judge that against whomever.
Mainers are really boring. They're flat and they have no personality. They're like, well, she says she's worried about it, but then she votes for it. So, I don't know. Maybe she's just a politician or something. Shut the fuck up with these lukewarm takes. You're boring me. All right, this bitch who interrupted me, this NBC News, whoever her name is, she spoiled my next fucking story because Congressman Max Miller, I wanted to talk about him. He's a Republican. He's running in Ohio, and he is doubling down. He's coming up to the table. He's putting 2 chips on top of 2 other chips, and he's saying, "Fuck you. You are not going to. I don't care if you have abuse allegations. That's usual shit nowadays. Whenever anybody's running for any position, it's he's running for local town mayor, sexual assault allegation. Do you understand the usual types of people that are running for power? Most of these people have committed those violent types of assaults on people. Most of these people are are guilty, that's how they end up being the types that think that they are entitled or like skilled enough to run an entire state. That type of position just attracts these sexual fiends. And this man, he's defending himself from claims of domestic violence and child abuse that have been made by his ex-wife. Well, how much can we believe her? Miller said that he would not leave the race, even as his ex-father-in-law, Senator Bernie Moreno of Ohio, said today that Max Miller, is not fit to serve. Well, he is on the bitch's side who might be lying.
Republican Congressman Max Miller doubling down on his re-election bid and defending himself against claims of abuse by his ex-wife.
I'm going to be honest. I'm going to be honest with you. She looks like a liar. She looks like a cheater. I think I can understand. Like, what did she do to deserve it?
By his ex-wife.
I'm not getting out of this race.
As his former father-in-law, Republican senator who is close to President Trump, says he is not fit to serve.
Let me begin with the most painful accusation of all. I have never abused our daughter.
Well, okay, you could have, though. You may have. Was it justified? Like, how much Play-Doh was this bitch smearing into the carpet that she deserved to smack?
I categorically deny abusing my former wife.
And after a lengthy live video on X, the two-term Ohio congressman posting a Dropbox folder he says contains the keys to his innocence, months into a bitter custody dispute between him and his former partner Emily Moreno, the daughter of Senator Bernie Moreno. She accuses Miller of throwing hot water on her and holding a gun to her head, according to police reports. In February, police also investigated after their daughter suffered a broken collarbone and bruising. The cause of those injuries is disputed. Miller denies all...
Kids, they jump off of ottomans. They fuck themselves up all the time. They throw themselves off of stuff. They're like, let's see who can jump the highest off of slides. Like, I'm going to be real with you. He might be beating his wife and his child, but honestly, it seems categorically not... It seems refutable. Doesn't seem irrefutable from what I'm seeing.
The cause of those injuries is disputed.
Disputed doesn't mean that they have anything on him, all right? And he's a Marine. They've been known to get colorful with their expression of anger, and that just happens. If you're in a family with somebody who's serviced in the military, if they've went through, especially the Marines, they've had the experience of being broken down, being modeled into this unit of bringing out commands. They're the ones that perform. They're not the ones who ask questions. He is definitely the type to just act out when he feels like doing something. I'm not saying that he's guilty of anything. I'm saying that he has the right to run and he has the right to have accusations thrown against him, but nobody has the right to say anything about him being verified as being guilty. It's still up in the courts.
Miller denies all allegations and has not faced criminal charges.
If I had assaulted her, would she have offered to cook me dinner 6 days later?
Oh my God. Oh, if I beat her, would she just like... You really think that if I beat a woman, she'd be making me dinner? Yes, that's like traditional woman shit. They are the types to force social cohesion. They're the types to... I'm going to be real with you. Unfortunately, women, they're the ones that are the types to go, well, he hit me, but like... I did get, like, they'll make an excuse. If they like the guy enough, if they're stupid enough to keep liking him, they're gonna create anything in their heads to verify it. There was a 2006 study, and if you don't believe me, you can look it up for yourself, that when women saw somebody who had cheated in a game, somebody who had acted deceitfully towards them, they had two sets of people. They had men and women in this test group, and it was shown that when they played a game against a scoundrel-type figure, somebody who cheated the game against them, somebody who continuously, found a way to skirt the rules in their favor and whatnot, but they were cheating. It was against the rules. And when they saw this person receive a punishment for cheating or breaking the rules, men smiled, they appreciated the punishment, women felt empathy for the person being punished. Someone who had lied to them, someone who had scoundreled them, and unfortunately, this is why they're better people. This is why women are, unfortunately, in most instances, like, nicer individuals than men are, because they tend to see the good in others more so than men are. Men are very, they can be. I'm not saying this is like a for sure thing. Everybody, obviously, they have different degrees of femininity, masculinity, don't get at me. But like women in general tend to be the ones that forced forward social cohesion. And they're the ones, unfortunately, that will make excuses for their boyfriends. They're the ones who will make excuses for their husbands. And listen, That is not anything to absolve the man of his guilt. Obviously, if a man is guilty enough, evil enough to hit anybody, he is the most evil in this situation. However, it is evil in one's heart to deny one the respect one is worthy of. And this is the key. This is the key. Women deserve to have a body, to have a thinking mind. They deserve to have a self that is cautious enough, that is wise enough to protect them. And if they deny themselves a smart enough mind, when they themselves are able to recognize the danger that they're in, when they're able to see that this person is not the right type, it's a person where maybe you can have your influences on him, maybe he's going to get a little bit better, but in general, this is kind of a lost cause. Women, unfortunately, because of the more kind, giving spirits that they tend to have, and this is not, I'm trying not to generalize, but I'm trying to speak out of like what we have verified, like this is verifiable. It's verifiable in the nature that we all watch happen around us. It's verifiable in the things that we all watch happen around us. We've all either had, if you have a cousin, if you have a sister, if you have somebody in your life that is just, they're dating the wrong folks, and they're hanging around the wrong crowds. Unfortunately, their internal nature is more likely to push them towards social cohesion. It's more likely to push them towards the idea of, I keep these people around, I hang out with them, maybe I can impart some good wisdom on them. Maybe I can make them a better person. There is, unfortunately, a more likely side to it. And listen, I'm not saying that this absolves the man of any guilt. I'm saying that if anything, this makes him guiltier because he's taking advantage of somebody who has betrayed their own faculties. They've betrayed themselves. But this, as a matter of fact, this is a call to women. This is a call to women in the situation where it's trust your wisdom, trust the Athenian wisdom that has been blessed into your minds, trust the strategy. Like when you when you feel the internal desire to force the cohesion, to force a bad situation to work, understand that that's not always your responsibility. Not every unfortunate man is your responsibility. And you can have any reason you want. You can have a fear of being harmed. You can have a fear of what'll happen if I take the kid and run? What if I'll happen if you can have an infinite world of what ifs, but any what if scenario is better than one where he or anyone in his life would lay their hands on you or your child. There is nothing in this world that justifies that, and you internally know that, but you deny your own wisdom because it's unfortunately women tend to have a lot more self-doubt. They tend to be internal questioners a lot more than men. Men tend to believe themselves capable of a lot more than women. Like men, when it comes to like the questions of like, do you think you could, they asked men and women, do you think you could land a Boeing 737 if the pilot was incapacitated? Men, I think 73% of the time, more so than women, thought that they would perfectly be able. Like men have an ego of themselves that is it's unheard of. It's Greek-like. It's many men believe themselves to be heroes in waiting. Women are in many ways they're more modest, but that also that modesty is an appealing trait. It's one that it's a very motherly trait. It's one that encourages the idea of like, I'm going to help foster the good in every person. I'm not going to hope that every person sees how good I am. This is exactly why women tend to be the ones that enforce the idea of social cohesion more than men. And where does this all go? How does this relate back to the Max Miller story? If this girl is smart, if she was an intelligent person, if she was the type to know what was right for her, she would have left a long time ago. And sometimes it takes people a long time. Sometimes people deny themselves. Sometimes people are dumb for an extended period of time. But eventually their nature will come around to them. And obviously she has some internal nature. She went ahead and she made this guy, and maybe this is assuming that the story is true, but she made him a meal 6 days after he threatened to beat her. Like that's a woman forcing social cohesion, even in a situation where it probably wouldn't work. Like, I'm just going to be real with you. She's got to learn to trust the internal nature that's telling her to secede, which obviously she has. I'm happy for her on that front. But now these two can go on to make other people's miserable lives more miserable. They can continue to spread their misery. Misery loves company. And that's, you know what? Once he loses, once he's not a fixture in our democracy that we have to hear about every single day, this Max Miller character, that will be a day to celebrate. But, who knows? I really don't know. He could win.
Offer to cook me dinner 6 days later?
Senator Moreno writing in response today that Miller's behavior is, quote, erratic and dangerous, making it impossible to keep this matter private, and calling on Miller to leave the House of Representatives. Miller shot back, accusing Moreno of speaking out now for political reasons. A person close to Senator Moreno tells NBC News he paid hundreds of thousands of dollars in legal fees on behalf of his daughter, and that this has been painful for the senator, who is concerned for his grandchild, too.
Well, okay, if he's so worried about it, it seems like he would have handled it way quicker. And it seems like these two had a child together. These two when your daughter is dating the wrong guy, you know that she is. And if you're not brave enough to step in while the iron is still hot, while you can still make that sword, it's kind of bent out of shape. You gotta take that fucking sword while it's hot, and you gotta slam it with the hammer. You gotta straighten that bitch out. And if you don't straighten that bitch out, it's your responsibility when it goes on to give a bunch of people tetanus. You're the poor craftsman. You're the poor blacksmith. You are the failure Hephaestus. You are the exact opposite of what a good parent should be. You refuse to take the tools that were handed to you. You refuse to take the influence that you were able to provide at that time, and you squandered it. You squandered it, unfortunately, like you squander most things. Not you, the listener specifically, but you know exactly. Search in the bowels of your mind right now. You know exactly the type of parent that I'm speaking of right now. If you've been alive long enough, you understand the failures that there are out in this world, that they don't teach their kids common sense. Common sense, as much as we'd like it to be, is not that common. That's fine. Something that we all just have to live with, ladies and gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't even know what to do from here on out. I think we should, you know what? Let's do something different. Let's intermingle this second story into the rapid fire section of today's headlines. Guys, lots of things you need to know about in order to keep your media diet healthy. That's what this section is dedicated to now. And the United States and Israel, they are making intensive preparations for what could become one of the most significant military campaigns against Iran, to date. I'm going to be real with you. The United States defense officials have confirmed the joint planning is underway to strike key Iranian infrastructure with potential targets including energy facilities, power plants, oil refineries, all alongside key command hubs and military installations. The heightened military posture is following weeks of the escalating regional tensions and stalled diplomatic talks over Tehran's nuclear capabilities. President Donald Trump met with top defense advisors at Camp David to review potential operations plans. So, not great. We've had better things negotiated at Camp David, and hopefully the entire destruction of Iran and their infrastructure is not one of the things that we will actually go through with. Reiterating that the administration is prepared to act defensively to prevent Iran from securing a nuclear weapon. Pentagon officials emphasize that U.S. forces across the region are fully positioned and awaiting full presidential authorization before initiating any wave of airstrikes or naval strikes. In response to the reported military coordination, Iranian defense officials have warned that Tehran has drawn up comprehensive contingency plans to retaliate against any coalition assault. Security experts have cautioned that a fresh campaign risks further disrupting global energy markets and triggering widespread escalation across the Middle East, even as diplomatic envoys continue working behind the scenes to seek political resolution.
New developments as the U.S. and Israel are planning massive bombing campaigns against Iran. U.S. embassies in several Middle Eastern cities warning American citizens to exercise extreme caution and urging them to leave. Iran once again accusing the U.S. of escalating tensions. ABC's Matt Rivers reports from Jordan tonight.
I'm curious if this is why Hank Hill moved back to the United States from Saudi Arabia. He got the sense in the air that it was like, I think not only do we need a King of the Hill reboot, but I also probably should just get the fuck out of here. Because the propane industry, the natural gas industry is about to tank over here.
Tonight, as the Pentagon prepares plans for what could be a major escalation against Iran, Tehran once again lashing out. Iran tonight accusing the U.S. of fanning the flames of a regional war and threatening to attack critical infrastructure in the region if the U.S. carries through with its threats to target Iranian energy facilities. Overnight, Kuwait saying it detected and destroyed multiple drones that had invaded its airspace. In a dramatic move, at least 10 American embassies across the region issuing new stepped-up alerts to U.S. citizens, warning Americans to exercise extreme caution, saying Americans in the region should consider departing or be prepared to depart should there be escalation.
Well, shit.
Airspace closures a real possibility. Two officials telling ABC News that the Pentagon is preparing a round of intense strikes on Iran that could begin as early as this weekend.
Uh-oh.
Trump saying Friday,
"We're beginning them very hard. And at some point they're going to say, we just can't take it anymore."
Iran continuing to threaten U.S. forces and allies in the region. And tonight we're learning more about how the Pentagon has responded to that threat by reconfiguring its presence from larger bases in Qatar and Bahrain to other countries like Jordan and Israel.
It's Qatar.
2 weeks ago, 3 American soldiers were killed in an Iranian strike on their base in Jordan. Just yesterday, Staff Sergeant Angel Rampersad was laid to rest on New York's Long Island. Meanwhile, with tonight, Britain's Maritime Safety Agency reporting that 2 more tankers in the Strait of Hormuz were targeted earlier today, a reminder of just how dangerous that key waterway remains.
Thank you very much. I forgot what news agency we just watched. Ladies and gentlemen, it'll be in the description if you want to see it. President Trump, let's keep on this. He says that he doesn't believe that Iran was behind the cyber attack that impacted Minnesota's water systems. He actually maybe believes that it's the responsibility of Minnesota for being grossly incompetent. The U.S. is investigating on whether or not Iran is still responsible for the malicious cyber attacks targeting water systems in at least 7 states, including Minnesota. Let's hear the president's words on this.
No, I think that Minnesota is behind it. You know who's behind it? Minnesota, because they're grossly incompetent. I think the governor's behind it. I don't think there was an Iranian cyber attack. I think that Minnesota ought to get its act together. It's one of the worst run states. JD will tell you. He found tremendous corruption in Minnesota. And by the way, this gave me a report. Massive future things having to do with corruption in Minnesota are happening right now.
Thank you. Massive future things are happening in relation to the corruption. Listen, I'm not one to say that Tim Walz is doing a perfect job. I've been one of his key criticizers because I believe that he was a deceitful person. I believe he still is a deceitful person. I believe that he's not telling us the full truth of anything, and that's perfectly fine. He's an elected government official. I wouldn't expect him to be. I also believe him to be a Maoist, but that's fine. He tends to keep that behind locked doors, and that's okay, and I'm happy about that. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to talk about something else that's affecting the world. I want to talk about something that's more accurately affecting schools, because Detroit Lakes, the school board, it has voted 4-2 to ban rainbow flags, stickers, and other non-district approved materials on school grounds. Supporters say the idea is to keep politics out of schools, while opposing students say that it restricts their identity. Now, listen, as a high schooler, I might have had more complex views on it. I might have had more open opinions on it because I was a high schooler. That's granted to be the case. Not to say that we should be listening to high schoolers, though, because their view of the world is small and their ideas are small, and they generally don't tend to know, anything. And I generally view it as this would be, by the way, I was a person where when the GSA did Gay Day or the gay celebration or something like that along those lines, there was people tearing down the posters. And I thought, that's kind of silly of you to be tearing down those posters. I think it's, if you believe that that's getting your point across in any way, you're a bit of an idiot. And I said that out on Instagram and shit. And I got unfortunately people that wanted to hurt me, which is fine. That's fine. I don't care. It's like they didn't do anything in reality. So there's no actual there. There was people that were against me for whatever opinions that I was putting out there, and I was just doing it to have fun. I was just doing it to hopefully get out of school early. I could be my life's in danger, and then I could head out. That was fun. I liked admittedly heading out of class early that day. I went up to my teacher and I was like, I want my car's out back. There's the people texting me right now saying that they're gonna come get me. There's a group of boys talking about it or whatever. I don't know how true this is, but can I leave? And he looked at me really confused and was like, I guess, sure. And then I left, and it was an awesome time, and I don't mind. I do not mind that happened, because do you know why? I believe that the rainbow, unfortunately, regrettably, I understand that people are in favor of high schoolers, middle schoolers or whatever, learning about the idea that gay couples are a thing. Sure, absolutely. We're not actively encouraging heterosexuality, just as I believe we shouldn't be actively encouraging homosexuality. I believe that a gay couple should be able to go to prom if they want to, because I believe that prom, in a weird way, is a gross thing that I think hetero people just kind of created in a way where it's like, I don't believe that it's forcing heterosexuality onto people, but I believe that it is definitely, it's a maintaining of the norms. And that's perfectly fine. We like to dress up our little boys and girls in like weirdly, we like to dress them up in like suits and dresses and shit. We like to like show them off, parade them when they're like at 17, 18. It's weird. It's like a weird thing that our society does. It's fine because it's like, it's normalized, so we don't question it anymore, but it's a bizarre tradition. And that's exactly why I'm like, okay, that is a bit of like a flagrantly, we're putting the idea of sexuality into children's minds. We're like, and many people will be like, no, prom is just like a fun thing. It's just like a thing where you can go and you can like have fun and whatever. It's like, you know, you are putting a bunch of people in a room. You know, I understand you want to have dances, you want to do all of that sort of stuff. You don't need to do the really shiny dresses. You don't need to do the suits. You don't need to do all of this sort of stuff that makes it a pseudo wedding for a lot of these kids. Asking out a date. Why are we encouraging dates for prom? Why? And I understand people go, well, you can bring a friend group. You can go there alone. You can do all of that. That's not what we're designing it to do. We're designing prom to create pairings. That's exactly why we have the idea of like a homecoming king and queen. It's retarded. It's like we're like playing around with the ideas of people dating each other, but we're not like going all the way. We just want to put that idea in kids' minds. It's weird to me. I wouldn't have prom if I was a person at a school, if I was an organizer. And I understand people would go, you're the weird one for thinking that it has all these connotations. You're the one for not thinking about it you're the weird one who hasn't thought about this. You went through the motions of like, what is a high schooler supposed to do? This. And then I just view it as like, if we want to strip sexuality from our schools, I'm chill with that. If we want to get all of the conversation around like gender identity and whatnot out of the mouths and the minds of like 16-year-olds, absolutely. I'm fine with that. I'm fine with the idea of like keeping adult content for adults. Then we got to talk about the realities of it. I don't want prom anymore. I don't want these like weird little ways that hetero people like to play dress up and Ken and Barbie with their daughters and sons. I think it's bizarre. I think it's weird. I think it's hetero slop. I think it's dumb. I really do. I think that if we want to restrict the way that people talk about identity, we want to restrict the idea that people can have rainbow flags on their backpacks. If we want to restrict all that, I want to restrict all of this heteronormality bullshit. I understand people will go, but it's the ordinary way. It's the ordinary way. It's overtly sexual, and it's encouraging procreation to who exactly again? High schoolers. What are we doing? What is that? And then we're surprised by the idea of teen pregnancy or of a prom pregnancy. You are the fuckers who did it. You are the parents who, like, played around fun. You're like, I like this idea of, like, dressing up my kid. He, like, wears this nice little suit. His girlfriend gets, like, this nice... Like, you are the weirdo. You're the weirdo for thinking that you're playing, like, little relationship. You are living... Like, and I know that not everybody does it from this context of, like, living through their child, but you're, like, playing with this fun little idea for your own enjoyment. A lot of the times, yeah, the kid wants to go to prom. Why do they want to go to prom? Because their mom went to prom, because their mom's mom went to prom. It's just a thing that we for some reason never thought about questioning, and now it's a thing. Now homecoming is always a tradition. This, like, near the end of the year, it's just always to be expected that you're gonna have 16, 17, 18-year-olds walking around in dresses and suits playing like they're fucking like a what's it called, like a bridal party or like a groom's party. It's retarded to me. It's really stupid and it's silly and it's overtly sexual in my mind. It's an overtly you're alluding to the idea of procreation, because many people will go, well, it's heteronormative because hetero people are the normal. They're like, in all honesty, having a girlfriend in high school is not weird. Having a boyfriend in high school is not weird. Unless, of course, you're like the same gender or whatever. Like, we should just stop. If you don't love the idea of putting gay shit in kids' heads, you shouldn't be fine with putting the idea of straight shit in their heads. You really shouldn't. You're putting the idea of procreation in their minds when they don't even understand what love is. They couldn't. They do not mentally comprehend it at that age. And I don't get this heteronormative bullshit that a lot of us just have kind of accepted and not really thinking about it.
Anna with Values Live here. I'm in Detroit Lakes, where the school board has voted to ban unapproved items like flags, buttons, or stickers from school grounds. The vote passed 4-2 after a sharp debate over whether those items are political messages or important signs of support for students. The motion orders the immediate removal of any materials not funded, sponsored, or authorized by the district. It specifically calls out rainbow stickers, posters, and buttons inside Detroit Lakes public schools. This directive was not on the July 27th agenda. Superintendent Mark Jensen saying it took him by surprise. The debate started with small rainbow stickers on about a dozen classrooms put on by teachers to quietly signal their rooms are a safe space for LGBTQ plus students.
I don't think a student can be LGBTQ+, because that encourages the idea that a child has developed a sexuality. I don't believe that a person below the age of 18 is informed enough to make that decision for themselves. So I deny that student the identity. I'm not saying that they can't have homosexual feelings. I'm not saying, because you're a hormone. You are literally just a bag of hormones at that age. Yes, I expect you to have all these weird thoughts. I expect you to be like, maybe I'm bi this week. Maybe I'm straight this week. Maybe I'm gay the other or whatever. That's what your entire life, up until like the age of 25 is for like a lot of people. Like up until their 30s, people are still figuring that sort of stuff out. And I think that it should be reserved for outside of a school age. I don't believe that a person below the age of 18 has any business remotely exploring those lanes of thought for themselves. It's unfortunate. It's unfortunate that a lot of people, they've changed the conversation around it. They've gotten comfortable with the idea of gaybies. They've gotten comfortable with gaybies. If you don't know about that, it's like, I understand, whatever you want to talk about, you want to normalize your sexuality, you want to do whatever. Babies don't have a sexuality. I'm sorry to tell you. There's people that want to go with like, oh, I have a trans, whatever, 10-year-old. Kids can't be trans. They do not mentally comprehend everything that comes with that territory. You are abusing your child. You're abusing your child if you allow them to identify as LGBTQ+. You're abusing your child if you allow them to identify as overtly straight. You are abusing your child if you allow them to pretend in their minds that they got it. I'm 18, I'm under the age of 18, but damn, I figured out the world and I know exactly what I am. Most of the time, these are going to be phases. Most of the time, these are things that the kid is going to play around with, modes of thought, and it's not anything that's going to be serious enough to divert your entire lives. And I think that many people need to get with it. Many people need to stop watching Modern Family. Many people need to stop with the idea of like, all right, maybe we can, you know, they need to stop watching TLC, where it's like, remember is it Jenna, the one where it's like I think she's like 14 or whatever, and her parents are like encouraging her to transition. They're like, yeah, we love whatever Jenna decides to do and whatnot. You're abusing your child. That's fine. It's fine. It's not fine. It's fine if that's what you personally want to choose for it, but I would rather it be in foster care than have it be with you. I'd rather you be honest with your child and tell your child you don't know very much, and you're going to grow to know a little bit more, and you're going to grow to understand things that are all over the place in the world. But you, as somebody who's you're not even old enough to rent a car. You're not even old enough to do most of these things in our society. People want to play around with the idea that children are oracles of truth because they're unfiltered. They don't have the bigotries of the normal world in their minds. They're dumb. They're stupid. They don't know anything. They are lacking in information, and we wouldn't trust somebody lacking in information to guide us in anything, and let alone to guide their own lives, unfortunately.
Truly, it feels like they're telling them, like, be quiet, almost like you're not welcome here.
Supporters of the ban say the policy should also cover signs about gun control, abortion, or pro-life groups, arguing the district shouldn't appear to take sides on any hot-button issues. Those who voted no said these items aren't political, and removing them could leave vulnerable students feeling less supported. In the end, the motion for the ban passed 4-2. The board is scheduled to meet again on August 24th.
Well, we'll see how that goes, ladies and gentlemen. I don't know. It's fine. I think it's a bit of like a, if you want to strip this conversation from the minds of all high schoolers, I would go, unfortunately, they're high schoolers. They're going to want to think the transgressive thoughts. They're going to want to play around with the ideas of like, well, maybe me and my friends are bi. Maybe me and my friends are trans. If you don't think that's really happening, as a person who was there in high school in the 2010s and whatnot, it's not that far off to be saying that this was a bad time for kids, especially when they were getting pulled into the online communities. People want to to talk about the red pilling, the pipeline, and all this sort of stuff. There were unfortunately groups of women, mostly unfortunately, that would all their friends becoming trans. All of them would feel as though they were boys. And unfortunately, and I'm going to be real with you, in my smaller town, Detroit Lakes, as a matter of fact, I graduated from this high school where the school board decided to have this motion. There was the idea of like, oh, there's one trans person, or like there's two people in like the entirety of hundreds. And when it did happen, when it did rise up, because my school was like a school of 800 people, eventually when this sort of transgender situation pulled up, it showed up just as often as you think it would, where like someone with gender dysphoria was 1 in a million. It's very rare to find. The one authentically trans person I believe I went to high school with turned out to be the one authentically trans person pretty much within the area. And in all honesty, like it just happens that way, especially of that generation where it's like, it's one every few years. It's one or two every few years where they genuinely feel this way, where it's like, okay, yeah, you were kind of born in the wrong body. All right. Yeah. That's like, I grew up with this person where it's like, you don't seem like that. You don't seem like that. You tend to feel more comfortable acting this certain way. And it's just sort of a thing that they will live with throughout their entire lives. We've known about gender dysphoria. We know it's a mental condition. We know it's something that happens in, every now and then with certain individuals. And it shows up in reality about as rarely as you'd expect it to. And most of the people that are in the non-binary crowd, most of the people that are in that, playing with trans crowd, they'll drop out of it by the age of, 20-something, 25. But like the people who are authentically that way will remain that way for the rest of their lives. That's how conditions work. These people that are doing it for attention will eventually drop it. They will eventually realize that it's not for them, or they'll realize that their mental condition has made them obsessed with something else. It's whatever. We can't control it. And people will come to their own ideas about who they are, and that's fine. All we can do is just live, ladies and gentlemen, because that's what I try to do. I just try to live. I don't care. I mean, people want to talk about sports. Why are you even fucking watching sports? I don't want trans people playing in sports. All right, yeah, sure. I don't want to watch sports. I really don't. Like, I agree that if you're going to be doing sports, yeah, maybe you should have different genders, and maybe you should not let the trans people play. But I'm going to be honest with you. This is acting as though this is a world where sports are our biggest issue. This is acting like sports are remotely important. They're distractions for Goyim, for fat Goyim who would like to bet on Kalshi about like, oh, I bet the Ravens are gonna pull it home this afternoon. Like, it's for the non-thinking. It's for literally the masses of society that are gonna do nothing else with their lives besides remember some dude in his 40s like fucking, oh, his rap sheet, and this is when his 2000 C's. Like, these fucking losers. They're fucking losers who will never have a remotely interesting take in their life. They realize it, so they're just not the types that are gonna be encouraged to have. I'm not gonna be like a thinker. I'm not going to be a person who's out there with my thoughts. I'm not going to be a person who's, really transgressing or like challenging the ideas of the modern world. I'm going to exist. I'm going to come home at the end of the day, and I'm going to go on Kalshi, and I'm going to go on my DraftKings or whatever, and I'm going to track this team's, they're doing real good in this, yeah. I don't know, ladies and gentlemen. Like, the trans issue with the sports, it's like, it's acting as though sports matter, and sports are fun for people because they don't matter. They don't actually mean anything, and that's fun. That's the fun of it. And you have to be the type to embrace nothingness. You have to be the real nihilist type to be the one to embrace sports and the one to embrace that idea. But honestly, nihilism is pretty appealing to a lot of people these days. A lot of people are going, it doesn't matter what I do. It doesn't matter what I'll do with my life at the end of the day. It doesn't matter what because no one's going to tell my story. No one's going to tell my story. My children don't listen to me at the end of the day. They're not interested in who I was. They're not interested in learning about the days of old. They're not interested. I grew up in the 90s, 2000s. Who wants to hear that fucking story? Actually, a lot of people. Like, I know that a lot of you guys have the same stories. I know that a lot of you guys have the same kind of, oh, we listened to Blink 182 and our parents told us not to do drugs, but like we did. Aren't we so bad? Like, okay, yeah, that's great, but it's like, you know, a lot of you have interesting stories. You should tell them. A lot of you, you know, whatever of your generations, where it's like, you know, rather than talking about Michael Jordan's life, I would like to hear about your life, because maybe you were Michael Jordan at one point. You know what I mean? Most of these people, by the way, that are involved in sports, that are thinking about sports and whatnot, they are people of like, maybe they've had an appreciation for the excellence. Maybe they're not all fat slobs. Maybe they're not all people that just sit on the couch on Sunday and go, oh, you fumble. If I was the one organizing, like, they're not all that. Some of these people have true appreciation for the excellence, the true performance of a really excellent athlete or whatever. Some people are really interested in that aspect of it, which is like, okay, whatever. That's not really the point of it for a lot of these people. That's not really the point, because most of these people, by the way, they are obsessed with other people's physical excellence, but they neglect their own. That's an unfortunate circumstance you find a lot of sports fans to be in. I think it to be a balance. I think every person, no matter their addiction, needs to find an area of balance where if you are obsessed with anything, you need to find a state of it where it is not going to intermingle with your care for yourself. You're never going to find yourself, I'm appreciating the physical aspects of all these individual men, but I can't like walk up the stairs without, getting out of breath. That is a bad state of a sports enjoyer. Like, a sports enjoyer should be a true enjoyer of sports. It should be a person who appreciates physical excellence, a person who appreciates, actually being able to do the things that a human body needs to do. That's what a true appreciation for sports looks like. That is athleticism. Athleticism, it's the gluttonous form of appreciating athleticism is the Kalshi bets. It's what we've been talking about. It's the area of sports fan where it's like most of these guys, they're Twitter fiends that spend all day gooning. And that's not every sports fan, but it's a lot of sports fans, unfortunately. It's a lot of anime fans. It's a lot of video game fans. It's a lot, if you're a fan of anything and you allow it to rot your brain, you're a dullard, and you've got to work on that. And you've got to find an area where it's like, you have to find that piece where, like, Stoics, they go, the true thing you're looking for is like actual honest appreciation for whatever it is you're doing. It's like a flow state. You just feel it. And a lot of people, they get this feeling by like drowning themselves in alcohol or whatever, but it's like, you can get that from true creation. You can get that from learning something. You can get that from hearing a story that you love. You can get that from just, it's everywhere. I'm not going to tell you where to find personal fulfillment, because honestly, it's not going to be the same for everybody. And you know what? Instead of that, I'd rather get into the final story of today, because this is a long one. This is like a long episode, and I'm fine with that. It's okay. But like, honestly, I'd like to wrap it up at some point just so you guys can go ahead and get about your day. I hope that you've enjoyed today's Monday broadcast. This has been a very fun one for me. And if you'd like to be there for anything else, I'll ask you to subscribe at the end. I hate when YouTubers try to do that thing where it's like, let me YouTuber this real quick. If you're enjoying today's episode, why don't you subscribe? Actually, unsubscribe to me for asking you, like, having the audacity to try to ask you to subscribe. And if you like my content enough, I'll earn back that subscription. Okay, how does that sound? Like, I think that's fair. Anytime I prematurely ask for a subscription, you have to unsubscribe. But then wait, like, keep watching episodes whenever you feel like it. And if I ever earn back your interest, then go ahead and subscribe again. Like, make me earn back the subscription. Otherwise, I won't learn. Otherwise, there's no way for me to actually understand if I'm heading in the right direction of content. I want this to be an enjoyable show for everybody. Ladies and gentlemen, I like had something in my lungs for a second. You get that, like, it's like a phlegmy thing, but it's like, it's summer. You know what I mean? It's like, it's summer, and I'm supposed to be like the cold season, the transitional seasons, the fall, the spring. That's where I'm supposed to be getting sick. Why do I have like a throat thing going on right now? Ladies and gentlemen, top Republican candidates for governor of Minnesota faced off in a high-stakes televised debate over the weekend, making their final cases to conservative voters. Conservative? What the fuck? What am I even pronouncing? Conservative voters ahead of the upcoming August 11th primary election. Hosted by Twin Cities PBS's Almanac, the debate featured healthcare executive Kendall Qualls? I believe it's Qualls, who holds office as the state party endorsement, alongside MyPillow CEO Mike Lindell. He is, by the way, I'm choosing him. If there's going to be anybody, it's going to be him, or it's going to be Lisa Damoth. He's carrying the endorsement of the former President Donald Trump, former and current. Minnesota House Speaker Lisa Damoth, another leading candidate in the primary field, did not attend due to a previously scheduled campaign event. The debate centered heavily on economic relief and government spending, with both participating candidates targeting state tax policies and business regulations. Lindell pitched a proposal to completely eliminate Minnesota's state income tax. Not a bad idea. Maybe not a bad idea. Promising to publish a detailed fiscal plan before primary day. Meanwhile, Qualls emphasized his background in corporate management. His Kendall Qualls. That's a woman's name. Kendall. I guess I've heard of men named Kendall, but like only in Big Time Rush. I love that. By the way, watch that show anytime you get the chance to. It's solid enough. It's from the same creator of Johnny Test, so it has like all these weird like sound effects in the background, but it's a good show. And Gustavo Rock is one of the funniest people that Nickelodeon has ever created. Ladies and gentlemen. Meanwhile, Kendall Qualls emphasized his background in corporate management. He argued that his private sector experience makes him uniquely suited to roll back newly enacted mandates like the state's paid family leave program. Immigration and workforce policy also sparked notable exchanges between the two contenders. Lindell backed away from his earlier proposals of temporary work visas and called for stricter enforcement against employers hiring unauthorized workers, which we need. In Minnesota, there's unfortunately, a lot of people that work off of the undocumented labor, all of these like unauthorized workers and whatnot. They need to be stopped. They need to be crushed. They need to be dealt with really quick. And I know a lot of people, even my own friends and family, they will tell me to my face, I work with somebody who's illegal. I work with somebody who's undocumented. You know you're harboring. You know that you're harboring somebody of the state. And then they look at me and they go, "You sound like you're fucking Gestapo and whatnot." And I'm like, I'm not gonna be the one reporting you. We're not at the point where like America's North Korea, where like they're gonna be offering me money or anything in exchange for ratting you out. But like, keep in mind. I'm not the one to try. The moment you tell me I work with an undocumented illegal, guess where it's going? I'm gonna walk on over to this microphone and blah, it's going all over the airwaves. Everybody's hearing about it. Well, let's be honest, like these 7 or 8 people that are going to hear this episode are going to hear it, but that's about it. Like, just don't tell me that you're working with an illegal if you're working with an illegal, because everybody's going to hear about it through this show, ladies and gentlemen. Kendall Qualls directly had a criticism towards federal border enforcement and urged full state cooperation with federal authorities. Let's just hear a little bit about this before I go ahead and let you go.
Top story here at 9 tonight is the race for Minnesota governor. The primary election is just in a week and a half, and tonight we have the 2 of the 3 main Republican candidates who squared off. Our Maury Glover joins us with the takeaways from Kendall Qualls and Mike Lindell.
Maury?
Well, both candidates are calling themselves political outsiders. Qualls, who's endorsed by the state GOP party, and Lindell, who's endorsed by President Trump, both believe they should be the next governor of Minnesota.
Looking to eliminate income tax in Minnesota, being the 10th state to do that.
I love you, Mike Lindell. Can we please address the voice? It's a little gravelly. I think that just tea, like chamomile tea, honey. Oh my God, like right before you head on stage. And it sounds like you got a bit of a phlegm thing going on. Can we just work on breathing exercise, maybe a little bit of cough, phlegm relief before you head out on camera? You know what I mean? I think we just do some breathing exercises. If I personally invite Mike Lindell to come on this show so we can work on his platform.
Looking to eliminate income tax in Minnesota, being the 10th state to do that. The budget will be published this week, and so people can say, well, everybody wants to cut taxes. I'll cut taxes if you vote for me. No, I'm actually going to put it out there. We've been working on it 6 months, so I want Minnesota to be no income tax state.
I love that. By the way, the second that happens, moving back and staying forever.
State to do it.
Where Mike and I have violent agreement is that we need someone in this state leading that's outside of politics.
Kendall's a black dude? Wait a minute. What? Kendall Qualls. I mean, man, you defied all my expectations. I heard the name Quendell. I expected a Kendall Qualls, excuse me. I heard Kendall Qualls. I was like, that's going to be some skinny white boy with a douchey haircut. No, he is a fine-looking, middle-aged, I believe middle-aged, a little younger than middle-aged. He's got some salt and that pepper, but he's got this very, I noticed a lot of men of middle age with salt and pepper, they have very defined veins on their, sides of the forehead. He's got this bit of an Obama look to him. It kind of works. Kendall Qualls, let's just hear what you have to say. Maybe you can convince me to vote for you.
is that we need someone in this state leading that's outside of politics. It's going to be business-oriented solutions. I just happen to think my business-oriented solutions are better than Mike's.
That's not bad.
Now, in all, the debate lasted about 35 minutes, and the candidates sparred over issues like immigration and healthcare reform. They also talked about whether state leaders have done enough to combat fraud in state social service programs.
Uh-oh.
The fraud that we have in our state, Medicaid fraud, any litany of it, is a national embarrassment. And this is an embarrassment of poor leadership and not having accountability. There's two different systems that we have today in America. Those for the rest of us that are accountable, and government employees or elected officials, a different system. It's time to get back to one.
Weren't they in on it? I think Waltz has done enough. Yeah, we need to go to jail. Okay, that's my answer. They haven't done enough. They're going to investigate. If you go to my website right now, you can check out. We've got an investigation on Keith Ellison
Keith Ellison is a fucking crook, and that's honestly, I would love to see the idea that Mike Lindell is out there looking for justice.
Right now, you can check out. We've got an investigation on Keith Ellison, but that's elections. That's separate. But I believe these politicians need to go. There hasn't been enough. People need to get arrested.
Yeah.
Now, House Speaker Lisa Damuth was not a part of tonight's debate, and that primary will be held on Tuesday, August 11th, and both candidates say they will abide by the results of that primary.
Well, that's pathetic. Lisa, I said that you had a real chance. I was like, come on, you could be a Kamala Harris for the conservatives type of vibe. But, she decided not to show up. She thought she was better than them, which is fine. Maybe she is. Maybe she'll show up with the votes on Election Day. I have no idea. But so far, Mike Lindell's the guy. He's the guy, at least on the GOP side. Otherwise, it's Peggy Flanagan, running against, what's her name? Who is Peggy Flanagan running against? Ladies and gentlemen, it's her or it's, what's her name? Angie Craig. Angie Craig. She gets a lot more money from PACs. Damn it. Like PACs and donors and all this sorts of stuff. Angie Craig, I'm not big into her. The seat is being vacated by Tina Smith and Peggy Flanagan. You got an image issue. I'm going to be honest with you. Is it Peggy Flanagan or is it going to be Mike Lindell? If I was looking at those two options, I'd really be conflicted on who to vote for. I really don't. Because one of them is a puppet of the Waltz administration, has been there for the beginning, and has stayed a loyalist since. And, one is the other is the My Pillow guy. I have a photo of myself from childhood with this man. He's like a treasured figure of the television. I grew up around the idea of the My Pillow being like, I want a My Pillow. Every time it showed up on the TV, I wanted it. So I really don't know, ladies and gentlemen, what it's going to be on Election Day, but I know that you, the Minnesotans, will make the right call. Ladies and gentlemen, I have been your host, Ollie Vogt Larson. I hope that you've enjoyed today's stories. I had a wonderful time gathering them for you. I hope you've had an even more wonderful time listening to them. If you'd like to be here for tomorrow's story, we're going to be back at it again for the rest of the week up until Friday around this same exact time. Subscribe, like if you liked it, ring the bell for notifications. In the meantime, I've been Ollie Vogt Larson with your brain on air. Thank you all so much for listening. I'll catch you all tomorrow. Bye-bye.